Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Tom Baker Show, presented by TrackTune. You'll be hearing a lot more about TrackTune throughout the program, and in fact, in this show, and yet in the next show as well, we are continuing our mini-series of shows that we filmed at the Performance Racing Industry Trade Show in Indianapolis, Indiana, back in December. Want to thank the good folks from TrackTune for having us in their booth. We did live stream coverage all weekend long, and of course we're demoing the TrackTune app, which you'll hear more about throughout the program, and just had a great time on this particular show. You're going to hear from two gentlemen from very different parts of the motorsports world. Charles Lewandowski is a former NASCAR racer who now operates Chalou Performance, Chalou Race Parts, and also MSI. And Charles is a man who has accomplished a lot in the sport, both as a driver and also now as a businessman. So you'll hear from him, and you'll also hear from Justin Wills. Justin is one of the Radical Race Gear team racers. Radical Race Gear, manufacturing suits and also sublimated shirts, apparel. RadicalRaceGear.com is their website. But Justin is a Pro 4 trophy truck racer on the West Coast. And so Justin stopped by the booth to talk about his background and tell his story, and you're going to find it fascinating, I think. Look forward to both of those. Let's get everything started. Welcome back to the PRI Show, 2024 PRI Show, coming to you from Indianapolis, Indiana. The Indiana Convention Center, to be specific. We've just had a blast here in the TrackTune booth, just talking to different people from the show, different motorsports personalities, from drivers to products that sell to the motorsports industry. And now we marry those two together. Former racer and now business owner, Charles Lewandowski from Chalou Performance and MSI Racing Products is our guest. Our coverage, of course, sponsored by TrackTune, also by Radical Race Gear. Charles, you own two businesses. You were a race car driver. Take us back to the beginning and talk to us about how you went from race car driver to what you're doing now.
Sure. Thanks for having me, of course.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. It's a typical story. Family was involved in racing, and I'm originally from Connecticut, so quarter midgets was a start. Moved up the ladder to micro sprints, asphalt late models, and then Busch North, which is now ARCA East, I guess you can say, and was able to move down to Charlotte area and run for some nationwide, now Xfinity and truck teams, all small to mid-sized teams, but was able to do it, on a full-time or majority of the year schedule for a few years. And to be honest, when I got to my early 30s there, it was getting harder and harder for me to find better opportunities. So with us having family-owned cars growing up, I was always pretty hands-on. I'm not the most talented fabricator or mechanic by any means, but I was always involved on the business side. Mom and Dad put a lot of focus on me handling a lot of the responsibilities at whatever level. So we were pretty close to starting our own Xfinity team.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't going to be a top 5 effort, but it was going to be something very respectable where sponsors and people would want to be involved to some level, and maybe we could grow into something potentially bigger and
sure.
Long term. And to be honest, one thing after another, I needed 2 or 3 things to go dominoes to fall to make it worthwhile doing. And unfortunately, one domino kind of went away, and it turned into a program that wasn't going to be to the level where it was going to be something that I would have been proud of and was worth the risk to pursue. So we had a lot of equipment and parts and pieces gathered, I had a lot of friends in the industry that were, had teams, and they knew what I was trying to do, and they were kind of bugging me to sell some of this stuff. And when I finally understood that, long term, we weren't going to be able to put these pieces together, we started selling some of these assets that I had, and I was building towards that team. And Chalu Performance was created not really by accident, but by just the way everything worked out. So Chalu was a nickname of mine. Charles is, CHA, and Lewandowski's LEW. And we had the website, we had a logo, because obviously my name's not the easiest to spell or say, depending on what part of the country you're from. The Northeast and the Chicago, Wisconsin guys can seem to be able, and here probably, can piece it together. But down south, they avoid saying it, or they just give up. So the Chalu name and brand was already in place, and I was very, very focused on coming up with something that I didn't want to put myself in a box. If we want to do some sports car parts and pieces, I didn't want my name to dictate, to push people away.
Right.
So I wanted kind of my own identity, and that's how we started the parts business.
So in starting the business, what was your original vision for it, or your original goal? What did you want to achieve with it? Because I think if it's what I believe it is, I think it's evolved a little bit past where you believed you would be when you started.
So when we started, you got to remember, when I moved to North Carolina, it was the mid-2000s.
Right.
And you had major players in the parts industry, in the circle track world. Hutcherson Pagan,
sure.
CV Products, Brian Vickers' family, and BSR. And there were some other small, strong players as well, but those three were massive organizations. So and there's other people that have filled some of that void, but the industry has changed so much. I am and was still shocked that the gap that was that we were able to fill. That I knew there was some. I didn't expect there to be this much. So. The vision was just, I put a lot of effort in the Northeast where I'm from. I knew there was some opportunity there, but I am still, like I said, still shocked that the gap in the even the NASCAR market, which we've done very well with, there was as much opportunity so soon that we were able to capitalize on and grow with.
So when you started, because my thought would have been because you were racing in NASCAR, you started it thinking about the NASCAR market,
sure.
But now you've kind of gone beyond that, right? And then now you also, over the years, have added a second business along with it.
Yes. So, the core of the business is certainly asphalt circle track racing, and the parts we provide, and Xfinity and truck is definitely top priority for us.
Okay.
I personally go to a lot of events. We have a nice customer base in Cup as well. Obviously, with a new car, the piece of the pie is minimal, and it always kind of was. Those guys built a lot of their own stuff. So, but on the part side, we sell everything from. We have a great partnership with Brembo Brakes, and everything from fuel cells with ATL and Tilton for clutch and pedal assemblies and tethers and wheels and radiators, and there's not much that we can't do to finish the car. We have some stuff that we have private labeled, and then the second company you're referencing is MSI Racing Products, which was a company created in the 80s by Curtis Goodman and his family. They built hundreds of thousands, if not millions probably, of lug nuts and wheel studs for the top teams. And we were looking to expand our manufacturing capabilities or add manufacturing capabilities. And Curtis was ready to retire, and we found that. So that added a whole nother layer of what we were able to do, and that helped us get into the IMSA sports car world, the automakers world.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that. Now we have, I say we diversified the business, but we just moved into another part that has four wheels and tires,
Gotcha. Okay, so you didn't start MSI. You basically bought that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. May 2022, my wife and I, Jessica, we were actually looking at purchasing a CNC machine. a Haas machine and put it in the back of the Chalu Performance Shop in Mooresville. And that opportunity came up. And what really excited us was the capabilities doing the lug nuts that we were already selling, and the sports car market, which was not really something that we had. We had some contacts in, we had some relationships in, but nothing worth bragging about. So I said, okay, we need to get a little aggressive here, and it'll give us a good jump start.
So you went from looking for a machine,
yes,
to buying an entire business.
Yes.
That's so businessman-like,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like
was
going to look for a motor out of a race car and you walk off with the whole operation.
Yeah, the whole team, truck and trailer. Yeah, it certainly was not a surprise to us, but just like those dominoes that they fell the wrong way to have us start that team in I think it was 2016 or end of 2015. The dominoes fell the right way for us to acquire MSI. And they always had a great reputation. The quality of product is superior. Everything's made in the USA, of the highest materials. I always say to new customers, I went 200 miles an hour, 180 miles an hour with MSI products. I had my butt in a seat, so I'm sorry not going to cut corners on quality because we own it now. So we took a little leap there, and it's in a separate building that's located in Troutman, which is it's about 10 miles away from each building, I think. And we have a great group of guys up there, and a great group of girls and gals at Chalu that work really hard. And we're really a bunch of hardcore racers. I think that's what separates us, is we're all car guys, but we really have a group of hardcore racers that can really relate to the customer when things go really bad or hopefully really good. Yeah. But we can relate when just about everything that comes in door, we can look at each other and compare a story.
When you talk about how the business climate and the sport, how it's all evolved so much since you started, I feel like sometimes as an observer, obviously evolution is mostly good, I think, in almost any scenario, right? But I wonder, and I'm curious to hear your take on where we're going with the sport. Not just NASCAR, but the sport in general. It feels like the more we get into technology, computers, engineering, digital, are we doing a good thing, a bad thing, or a little bit of both here?
I think probably it's a pretty big mixture. What I like about dirt racing, and we were talking about it the last few days, is that and I know there's changes to some extent across the country, but a 410 sprint car, for the most part, it's a 410 sprint car.
Yes.
And if you're running weekly at Williams Grove, you minimal changes to go to Knoxville to run the Nationals. And I think probably the most discouraging thing on the asphalt side I'd like to see is more just common rules where minimal changes to run for like for a guy up in the Northeast where I'm from can come down and run the Martinsville late model race, things like that. So I think asphalt needs to focus on that. The industry as a whole, there's a lot of technology that we probably don't need that doesn't really affect the quality of racing for the positive, and some of it is really cool and it's hard to ignore. And it's just like you said, it's a little bit of a mixture. I'm a little bit of an old school guy for being in my late 30s. Yeah. So I saw a lot of the cool stuff that I wish was still around. Some stuff is not realistic to still be around, but certainly we have a little bit of everything going on in 2024, almost 2025.
I feel like in some ways we've gone from racing being an art to racing being more about science.
Sure.
And I think it's happening so quickly that it's hard for someone even your age or my age, I'm much older than you, to kind of adjust to it and figure out how to be a fan of it, because I see these Saturday night racers who work so hard to get from where they are to a NASCAR or an IndyCar or an F1 or wherever it is they want to go. And more it's becoming, it feels like, less and less about how much talent you have and more about how much money you can bring to the table, because from the team side of things, it's harder to make ends meet and it's harder for them to find sponsors, right? But here's where I'm going with this is, as a business person, you're kind of the guy in between the two. So what are you seeing out there, and what maybe are some thoughts you have on a direction, maybe what should we be doing?
Well, it's, that was a challenge that, I had 10,
as a driver
10, 12, 15 years ago. My whole career. I always say my family, we had just enough money to get ourselves in trouble, to be honest. So mom and dad sacrificed so much for me to get to the level I was able to race at, and really did a good job, in my opinion, but really did a good job to position, like I said earlier, position myself where I had responsibilities that maybe some other younger guys I was racing against, maybe that's why we didn't have as much success. Maybe if I was just driving, I would have had more success, but, I probably wouldn't be here with you right now either, though, so I don't know, I don't really know what the right answer is, you gotta protect costs at every level, but it's I work so hard to keep the price down and buy the products for the teams because my job, my responsibilities are our responsibility. The race team, whether it's a late model or a cup team, and Chalu Performance, is to help keep each other in business. So it's a challenging time, and it seems like it's, like you just pretty much said, it gets more challenging by the day or by the year.
Well, yeah, because I'm sure you get a lot of drivers that come to you and would you sponsor me and all of that sort of thing. And I know you well enough to know that your heart would love for you to go, sure, I'll sponsor all of you because that's the kind of person that you are. Yeah. But you have to consider each situation, and it just feels like, as an ex-driver who had some of the same issues that probably 90% of them have that come to you, you can relate better. And that's why I was kind of wondering what your perspective is, and what do you tell them in terms of what they should be doing in 2024 versus how it was different 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much it's really changed. I really don't know if in 2015 or 14, if there was really any emphasis on sponsorship. It was so extreme at that level, at that point, at any level. I will say, I think that since then, the manufacturers have really done a good job. All three. I think Toyota obviously usually is a leader in this, but Chevrolet and Ford, I know for a fact they have helped get deals done, which I don't know. I could be wrong, and some of my buddies might correct me, but I don't know if that was as common 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and I think it was 20 or 30 years ago, but I think there was a gap when I was running where the manufacturers were pretty limited on driver support at any level. I'm sure there was, but I think it was more geared towards the team, and they still obviously helped the team, but I don't know how much was going on then. I think Toyota had some stuff going on, but I think all three have done a good job with some of that younger core group of drivers.
Yeah, it just seems like it's so much more challenging, and even for you on the business side of things, we've gone through part shortages and shipping issues, all of that sort of thing, supply chain. How is it doing business for you today compared to 5, 6, 10 years ago?
So we're rapidly approaching that 9-10 year mark, but COVID was very strange for all of us. What helped us, we were in a good point when Atlanta came on the NASCAR side, and all our buddies were there, and they, I kept getting updates that, okay, we're not gonna practice, we're just gonna qualify,
right?
And then we're not gonna qualify, we're just gonna race. And then I get a call probably 2 hours later that we're going home. So then that's when the reality set in that this is really going to affect us. So, but we were fortunate that NASCAR did a great job, and a lot of the short tracks did a good job and got back on track, even if it was minimal, with limited at track or on track and at track activity. But we really didn't feel the hit for several months. April and May was tough to navigate because you couldn't predict when the racing was going to continue, but the supply chain was okay.
Yeah.
And then, not too short thereafter, that's when we really saw, we would have stuff on order, and the PO said it was, $22 a box. By the time it showed up, it was $38. And,
Wow.
some of that stuff was, obviously, if it was just the racing industry, we would have had some irate customers and friends, but they couldn't go to the grocery store and not see it either. So we just did our best to absorb it and go back to helping keep each other going and keep each other in business. And we all got through it. And I think that part's we still have those challenges, but we're big enough now where we should be able to predict a little bit better.
So are we back? Are we fully recovered? Are we almost fully recovered? What's different now as a result of that probably will never again change? What's the challenge for you now after all that's over?
The concern I have is that some of those price increases didn't slow down sales, which on the business side, okay, whatever. But I look at it as a racer too.
Yeah.
So what concerns me is I like to see some of those prices come back down to reality. And we have seen that, companies like, large companies like Brembo and Z-Max and Tilton, they have done a really good job. ATL, they've done a very good job at absorbing as much as they could. Brembo, being from Italy, they absorbed all kinds of costs to help the race teams that no one knows about. It was never publicized, but the shipping costs were massive. And they knew they made some sacrifices on their bottom line to keep everything on track and keep everything going. And those are the people that you want to be associated with.
Yes. Yeah, it really is an amazing thing that's happened within the industry, because I really thought when it all first went down, we may never fully come back.
Yeah.
And here we are a few years later.
Yeah.
And you look at the show, and okay, it costs more, and maybe some things will never be the way they were in 2019 or January 1st of 2020. But by gosh, the motorsports industry is still alive and thriving and kicking, and the short tracks are running and fans are going out. I mean, I think, from all signs that you can see, the industry's strong right now, and it's stable, and there's new tracks and tracks coming back. I mean, you're always going to have issues, I feel like, but it's amazing how everybody pulled together and got us through that.
It really is. It was really a group effort. Like I said, a lot of the manufacturers really made some sacrifices to keep things on track, literally.
Yeah.
But, I look at places like my home track at Stafford Speedway.
Love that place.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to asphalt short track racing, they have the strongest weekly fields. They have the most updated facility.
Yep.
Like I can only imagine. I usually go to the Spring Sizzler the end of April, 1st of May, and I can't even imagine what the upgrade is this year. Last year, or 2 years ago, it was a patio bar with stamped concrete right at the start, right before the start-finish line.
Nice.
So, and the coverage they have, streaming coverage is excellent. But their car counts are amazing. And I mean, I think their car counts are as good. 20 years ago, I think the car counts were probably as good, but it's as strong as it's ever been. So, and you look at the upper levels. I mean, the truck series may not always have 50 trucks, but I'm telling you, like, if you're a winning team and you're off a little bit, you can run 15th and really, and you're a top team, top funded team. So it's different, but the industry is strong, it's healthy. There's a lot of encouragement going into 2025 on the business side across, the engine suppliers, drag racing, dirt, off-road. Everyone's very excited, it seems like, to see what the next next year is going to bring this upcoming year.
I've been impressed with the way that road course racing in general, you see the sports cars, the series like Trans Am and SVRA and some of the endurance series, all of that growing like leaps and bounds. And I know that you've dipped into that now with MSI. Talk a little bit about where you see all that going, because I feel like NASCAR is not just tacitly but overtly going more in that direction. With
it seems that way.
Yeah.
But the sports car, I call it all sports car, but the road racing, like the MX-5 Cup, the Mazda series is. Chad McCumbee is a good friend of mine, and Chad, when I went to Rolex weekend or 24-hour Daytona weekend last year, he said, do whatever it takes. Make sure either clear your schedule and watch the MX-5 Cup race, and it's going to be incredible. And sure enough, I mean, they're 7 wide coming for the win. And that series has good cars, has good teams, and like I said, good racing. So. The sky's the limit over there. I mean, even like the vintage, what we would call, the circle track guys would call the vintage stock cars and vintage type sports car racing is like Joe Nemechek
HSR, SVRA.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff is really strong, and it's really cool, too,
It is.
So that's a really interesting situation going on. And then with the NASCAR adding more road races, and it is very... Yeah, like you said, it may not be on purpose, but it's naturally happening where a good portion of the year is road race, which, off the record, it's probably best I'm not driving. I wasn't much of a road racer, so I probably would be, if I had a job driving, I probably would be pushed out because of the schedule anyway. So, but yeah, so it's exciting to see that, because it spices things up. Sometimes over a stretch of oval races,
Yeah, it just is interesting the way it's kind of exploded so quickly. The sea change, and I think NASCAR, I don't think it's happenstance at all. I think they're doing it on purpose because they want a certain. They're after a new market of people that sort of dwell in that world a little bit, and it's just been interesting to watch. And I think if you're a younger driver coming up now, when you were coming up through, it was ARCA. Busch Cup, right? That kind of a growth pattern. Late models, then ARCA. Now I feel like it's wide open. You're seeing so many of the newer NASCAR racers. They're coming from dirt. They're coming from sports cars. They're doing both.
Yes.
And I think it breeds a more well-rounded racer. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it's a great thing.
Absolutely. I think, and you got to understand, or you got to remember and understand that in that era of 90s and 2000s, you would race late, on the asphalt side. You would race late models.
Yeah.
But then you had Busch North, you had the West Series.
Sure.
You had Goody's Dash. You had All Pro.
Slim Jim All Pro,
Hooters Pro
Cup.
Hooters Pro. I mean, these were rock solid series with tough teams that. Think there would have been 100 cars if there was only one series. So with those going away, your options were a little limited, and the regional late model stuff was challenging to really be super competitive with, or find a series where there wasn't a really strong series to really point and say I want to So and the road racers, like the young road racers, are really good.
Yes.
And it's much easier to adapt to a circle track than it is a road course.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but it's the karting is the training for, if you want to go to F1, is really just training to go race now. I hate to say it that way, but
really
not to the same level in Europe or here as in Europe.
Right, it's totally different.
Yeah, totally different.
Everything over
extreme.
there is go-karts
That's extreme.
and then the Formula One ladder.
But it's pretty crazy. And a lot of young guys, their families have caught on to that, and they're running a little bit of everything.
Well, and some of it I think is cost related too, because if you think about it, you can, for about the money you're going to spend to run to win in the Cars Tour, you could go run a year of Trans Am, for example, and get road course experience and beyond TV, whatever it all is. But I mean, I think people are seeing that there's more than one way to get to the top now, which I think is great because some of the circle track stuff has gotten so pricey that the market that can afford to shell it out to compete and be competitive is not there. It's cut the market. So if you can go over and do micros and then do sprint cars or something and still come back and be recognized that, hey, your experience over there is valid enough for us to put you in our Xfinity car or whatever, it just gives more drivers an opportunity to get to the top via different paths.
Yeah, and there's no question that a driver can maximize an opportunity on a road course
for sure
much easier than they can at Las Vegas or Kansas.
Yeah.
So if you get a mediocre, mid-level 25th or 20th place Xfinity ride to go to Kansas, you could be the best driver that's ever run a stock car. You will not run top 10. You can maybe run 18th. You can gain a couple spots. And I'm talking guys that win on Sunday, they cannot make up the difference. Now,
right.
A good road racer can jump in that 20th place car and probably get to top 10 because some of the guys in the top cars are not capable of putting all the pieces together to do that. So that's a whole other aspect you look at, that what might take 8, 10, 12 races on a circle track,
yeah.
or intermediate, short track's a little bit better, but the intermediate they could really capitalize on in one road course race. So that's another reason to really, Austin Green ran, and Austin's not a road racer, primarily growing up, but he's run
right.
a lot of TA2, and
Trans
I mean, he jumped in the Peterson Xfinity car, and I mean, was a legit top 10 car every
For
time
sure.
they showed up. And no testing, limited practice, and he didn't put his name on the map because he's an accomplished racer for being young, but he really maximized everything.
He still is.
And still is. And he,
yep.
if there was less road racing on there, and he did 5 intermediate Xfinity races, they have great cars and everything else, but you're just not going to, stick out. And he goes to the road. He's a great example of what a road race situation happened. That was this year.
Oh yeah, there's several of those out there.
It is.
You think about Connor Mozak. You think about Connor Zilic.
Yes.
Brent Cruz.
Yes.
Think about drivers like that go and they're huge in Trans Am, and they win and they win and they win and they come back, and they're better drivers on the oval track for having had that experience. And I think that series in particular has climbed to the point where, you start looking at the road to Indy and the series that are involved there. I think Trans Am is an equal to that.
Sure.
And you can go from Trans Am and go back over there. And even though it's downforce, it's different, but the skill set to drive and race the courses is there. And it's just good to see the diversity that we have now in this sort of driver development arena versus just having that one finite
cookie cutter path
yeah.
that was kind of what you had to do, you know. But yeah, it's much easier for certain drivers with a road racing background. They can really maximize opportunities, and in one race they can really get their name on the board for that. Toyota,
right?
GM, Ford can take a serious look at them and hopefully put something together or push them over the edge. Some of those guys, it takes money to race.
Yep.
And a lot of the guys have some point of funding, but it's not enough. So if a Toyota goes to a Tricon truck team or a Venturini ARCA team or something like that and can push them over the edge, now they're off to the races for the year, and they have time to really capitalize every opportunity instead of that one, and they can get comfortable and really try to go win.
Okay, so let's go back to business for a bit. What should we know about Chalou and about MSI? If I'm looking for what you have, talk a little bit about who's your customer, what do you do, and
so we have a full retail area.
Okay.
at our shop on Performance Road in Mooresville, which is, we call it the drag strip park in Mooresville. Several race teams are in the park. And then we have, for the local teams, we have a delivery service, outside sales staff and everything. So, but we ship every day. We ship all over, really all over the world, but all over the country on a daily basis.
Worldwide.
So, everything, again, we sell the top brands, or everything from, brake packages, like I said, with Brembo, to Tilton and intercom scales and ATL fuel cells and, lug nuts and small things like mirrors and brackets and hardware, fasteners, nuts, bolts, and pretty much any chemical or fluid that you'd put in a race car, we have.
Okay.
And we only really, what our vision is, we really only sell the premium brands. So when you call us, it is what I would put in my own personal race car. It's not, well, I wouldn't run it, but it's good enough for you. That is not the case.
Okay.
So it is a premium level store. We work directly with all the manufacturers, which obviously is important to keep the cost down. So we can compete with some of the top names across the country. In online stores, we compete with all of them. So we're very competitive with cost and pricing. But really, a lot of the small things like brake hose, we sell thousands of feet of brake hose every year. And what's really interesting is the guys that, and one of the reasons we're here at PRI is there's a lot of guys in the Midwest or the West Coast or Northeast where I'm from. They're not getting as the premium a product that they need, but it's not going to cost any extra. Like a brake hose that they're running is within 10, 15 cents a foot of what we can offer, what is what the Cup and Truck, and it's a better product for the same cost. So with the volume we're able to buy, we can really provide a nice service to the team. Again, we're all racers, so we really care and want to hear when things are, I always say, really good or really bad. When you're winning, we want to hear about it. When things aren't going good, we want to hear about it if we can try to help fix your headache of the weekend or the test or the practice. And again, a bunch of racers selling race parts, and just really excited that we were able to build something with a group of people that we have.
I'm going to be a little bit shameless here because I want to ask Charles. We're sitting in Track Tune's booth. You and I grew up in a different era. Mm-hmm. We went to the racetrack. We sat in the grandstands, and as soon as the cars came out, we couldn't hear the announcers anymore. Mm-hmm. Now Track Tune's got an app. This is an example of science having a positive impact on motorsports, right? Because now there's an app where you can actually hear everything the announcer's saying and really get in. Have you ever thought about, prior to knowing about Track Tune, had you ever even thought about that being an issue sitting in the grandstand? Because I know as a fan, that's always just the way it was, so it never occurred to me that it could ever be any different.
Yeah, you would listen to the starting lineup.
Yeah.
And you would, one to green sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was, no, not really. We were, it's just how it was.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'd put a scanner on and listen to your, obviously a family, family team or whatever. Yeah. But that's something that is kind of a game changer. I always like listening to Ben Dodge. I don't know if you know Ben up in Connecticut.
Sure.
Kind of a
legend.
Yeah,
legend.
Royalty for the commentary positions in the Northeast or modifieds, and I would love to go to track and listen to Ben. Obviously, with the streaming coverage, I'm able to do that. But when I'm at the track, it's not an option. So that is a very fun another aspect to keep the younger audience engaged as well, which is always challenging now. Always was, I'm sure, but more challenging now. So yeah, that's something that I would be using when I go to the racetrack.
Good. Yeah, and again, TrackTune.live, our main sponsor for the Tom Baker Show and Power Tube, also our sponsor for this weekend's coverage here at PRI, along with Radical Race Gear. If you need a new driving suit, if you need sublimated race wear, go see Butch Lamb, RadicalRaceGear.com. Thank you, Charles. Where do we find Chalou and MSI? How do businesses get in touch with you, or customers potentially to do business with you?
Sure. Well, first, thank you again for having us, of course.
Of course.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk about my story and what we got going on. Chalou.com, CHALEW.com, and MSIRP.com can give you some basic information. We're working really hard to have more of an online store. Right now, it just kind of gives you some basic information.
Okay.
Call the store, you can email in. But like I said, we're growing every day, and we have a Facebook page and stuff that we try to have some fun with on the social media side. So just look that up, Chalou Race Parts, and you'll get some laughs and some good information too. It's not, but we do have some fun with that as well.
Charles Lewandowski, thanks for being on. We appreciate it, and we'll have more coverage coming from the 2024 PRI show here in Indianapolis.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
It has been an absolute blast doing various interviews from here from the TrackTune booth. Want to thank all of the folks from TrackTune and from Radical Race Gear for helping to make it possible for us to come out and have some fun at the PRI show. And we continue with various personalities from the show, and we have got a gentleman named Justin Wills with us now, and that is one of the coolest looking hoodies I think I've seen all weekend at the show. Talk a little bit about the Pro 4 trucks that you race, and talk a little bit about your background and experience with that.
Gotcha. Well, we kind of jumped into Pro 4s. I'm more from the off-road area of rock bouncing, hill killing, side-by-side racing, stuff like that. And when you go to the track a year ago, it was the first time I seen the Pro 4s and Pro 2s and the stadium style trucks in person, and I just fell in love. I was like, I gotta get one of those, So somebody we knew had one for sale. We made a deal back in October of last year. Had no idea what we was actually getting into.
That's so often the case, isn't it?
It was a little crazy. I mean, throughout the season, it was a lot of learning from all aspects. I mean, it's almost like NASCAR, tuning the shocks and getting the suspension dialed in. It was just a lot of information that we had to search and get under our belts really quick, just kind of getting thrown in there, and over a purchase that I made a whim off of. But it was definitely a learning experience.
Talk a little bit about what the secret is to being successful in a series like that, because it's just not the type of racing that a lot of people are used to watching. I think it's super exciting, but it's different. The things that you need to be concerned with as a driver are somewhat different than what you would have to think about on a short track or even a road course. Talk about the secret to tuning those and the secret to driving them fast.
Well, luckily, we knew a couple people out west that does the trophy truck racing and stuff like that. We was able to get Wayne from Alltech fly him over and help us a little bit out with the suspension. We had a few days there that we rented Crandon out and just kept turning laps and getting better. So a lot of that has to do with the people other people that wasn't in our team that we had to kind of reach out and get with and bring them in. We're still far away from being a top competitor. We finished top 6 out of the season for our rookie year. Our goal is top 5, at least top 5 this year coming into 25. And then, keep building from there. I mean, like I said, we just jumped into the class, and, I mean, we're up against, the Greaves. It's been in there, forever. Each Johnny Greaves and CJ Greaves both got 100 wins under their belts.
Wow.
And you got mega money from big sponsorships that are helping other teams. Jimmy Henderson and Wildman. I mean, they're big names been in it. Andrew Carlson, so with Red Bull. I mean, so we're down here, and we're competing in this type of a level. We just have to keep pushing and stepping our game up and just trying to soak in all the information that we can. And at the same time, how do I say it? Like, it is a totally different group of people. It is almost like you're in that NASCAR environment where each team is their own team. They don't want to tell you no secret. If you ask something, they're going to tell you something totally opposite. And so it's everybody's nice, but nobody's going to just help you get to the podium in that field.
So for those who aren't familiar with this type of racing, talk about the format, talk about where you race, some of the places that you actually go race these trucks.
Got you. So this past year, the series, Amsoil Champ Series, is the one that we race. It was more Wisconsin-based. You popped into Missouri, you popped into Michigan 1 or 2 times, but this coming year for 25, they're actually going farther west, Wheatland, and then also Glen Haven in California. So they're making it more of a national, actually spreading it out. Us down from North Carolina, we still got a lot of traveling no matter what.
For sure.
So it don't matter to me if I'm going which way from North Carolina. It's all going to be fun at the end of the day. But as a different sport, different type of racing, that off-road, short course. And, I mean, we're running 1,000 horsepower, four-wheel drive vehicles. I mean, they're bad.
1,000 horsepower.
Like, I mean,
wow.
Yeah. So we're based. Our motor is actually built with TRD. So they're based off the NASCAR 358s, but ours is 410 cubic inch. So we're still turning 9,800 RPMs.
Wow.
And, I mean, they sound. You sit in it, they sound bad. I mean, you put 12, 15 of them on one track, all of them zinging at one time. I mean, it is the most exciting racing you could ever watch.
That's cool. I didn't realize they were such high horsepower motors.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So for you coming into it, what were some of the biggest challenges or biggest things that you had to master in order to begin to make some progress, both mechanically but also behind the wheel?
So it is like totally different. You think you're going to drive an asphalt car or a roundy round car or something like that, and then you go jump in this truck, and we're on dirt tracks with jumps, and we're reaching 130 miles an hour, hitting a tabletop jump, and flying 175 foot in the, it is totally different.
Insane.
And so to going into it, once again, touching back to the shocks and everything, that's the name of the game. You've got to get your whole suspension package tied in real quick, and knowing when you go to a turn and you snap the truck and back what they call backing it in, the turn's up there, but you go ahead and get that truck set,
right?
Almost, like I guess almost like a sprint car or something like that, and knowing no matter what ruts is in that turn, you're not lifting and you're staying in it and you're able to cross the ruts and come out. I mean, there's a lot of mindset of driving a Pro 4 where you're thinking that you got to let out, but you can't, because as soon as you let out, it's going to grab or something like that. So once you hit a turn, you got to be committed all the way through that turn, or it's going to be rough.
How many events do you run a year with
So
these types of vehicles?
It's 8 total weekends, but we race. Well, Fridays we have a small practice session, and then Friday afternoon we have a qualifying session, and then we actually race on Saturdays and Sundays. Each day has a race. They're normally 15 minutes plus 2 laps. So
Okay. And what is the progression, or is there one, from what you're racing, where if somebody's, because obviously we all, I think, understand the road to Indy. We understand if I'm going to get to NASCAR and your late models, you go here, here, or here. What is there a progression for these, or is this actually, I would think with 1,000 horsepower, you're pretty much racing a NASCAR level, you said earlier?
we are.
You started right at the top.
We did, you know. Like I said, I would watch the race and I fell in love with it. I was like, how do I drive one of them? Normally, and even in the rule books, it actually says that you've got to be a qualified driver to step up and to go into Pro 4. And we kind of bypassed it all. We just signed up and went out there. Normal people would start down with the Pro Lights, the 2-wheel drive, more of the Ford Ranger-based size truck, 300-400 horsepower, and step up from Pro Light, Pro Spec, and just step up, and then to go to the Pro 2, which is 2-wheel drive. We just bypassed it all and just said, hey, we're going full board. This is what we're going to do. And we're at the top.
So what will it take for you to get from top 6 or so where you are now to winning races and championships at this level? What are you missing, or is it you? Are you missing some things with the truck? What is the thing that you will need to do in order to get to the next level?
It's seat time. Just more and more, you got to be putting more laps under your belt than the water truck. You do.
At some dirt tracks, I'm not sure that happens, but
yeah.
I see the water truck as much as I see some of the cars.
I know exactly, and you got to be putting more laps on the track than they are.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's seat time. Just getting more comfortable with the truck, getting the truck dialed into you, getting the truck dialed into the track, and just seat time. Practice. Like I said, we're going up against guys that's got multiple seasons under our belt.
Sure.
And so, I mean, it's already a hard field out there. So for us to be competitive, we just got to get more and more seat time.
Okay, so now the $64,000 question. How did you get hooked up with Radical Race Gear?
So years ago, I want to say almost 15 years ago, right when Butch started, I was just Googling, looking for crew shirts. Nothing else. I was just like, you go to the truck and tractor pools and stuff like that. Everybody's got these nice crew shirts on.
Sure.
Everybody's matching, so I just kind of Googled, where do I get crew shirts? And I was like, man, I'm in North Carolina. This guy's in North Carolina. I'm just going to go over there and pop in his store and just ask some questions. And that's how me and his relationship got started, is back when I was racing rock bouncers and stuff like that. I finally got a suit from him, Back then, we wasn't as financially stable. So it was
Sure.
like one thing after another. And I was personally funding all of my racing. Until actually this year, I never reached out to get any kind of sponsorship or whatever. I just kind of grew my own racing. And so we just now started with that. But Butch has been there the whole time, getting us tents and canopies and whatever we needed and as you can tell, my colors, we stand out. I mean, I go from head to toe. And he's always had short times and whatnot. And then moving on from there, we kind of got more personal because we lived close to each other. I mean, we're more or less friends, you know, and go out to eat a lot, you know, all that. So that's why if you look at the truck now, we ran half the season this year with my Southern Blacktop as my company. And we ran half the season with Southern Blacktop on the side of the truck, and I'm like, you know what, that's not benefiting me showing Southern Blacktop on the side of the truck, and we're racing up Wisconsin, Michigan, and stuff like that, because I'm not going to go up there and pave. I was like, you know what, let me put Radical Race Gear on the side of the truck, and let me help him grow. Even the other day, we was here, well, our driver's relation guy, his daytime job was he works for Motor State. So I took him and introduced him to Butch, and now they're working on it together to get both their accounts tied in where Butch can start selling more products on his site than he was. He's got an account there, but they just got to figure out how to tie it together, and so they're going to go on from there. So that's another great thing about like this show is business to business relations and stuff. So, you know, when I decided to put his decal on the side, my whole goal was to help him. So maybe one day down the road he gets big enough he can contribute to our team a little bit more.
Absolutely. Besides Butch, who else helps you make it all happen?
I can't never forget my wife, my crew chief, and everybody that works with us at the races, because they don't have to go to the races right now. It's not like we're making them and all that stuff. They enjoy coming, and so they help us out. And then Roof Signs, Neil over at Roof Signs, they keep us decaled, the truck wrapped real good, looking good. So that's mainly our top guys, and then Raceline sends us some wheels here and there. So
well, it's been a lot of fun to get to know you and to kind of get to understand what you're doing in the Pro 4 truck. Like I said, that's a form of racing that I think a lot of people, they may have seen some of it, they don't really know too much about it, but you're right, it's one of the most exciting forms of racing, and definitely. I had no idea the horsepower was that high.
Oh, yeah.
But that must be a thrill to watch in person, and I hope someday I get the chance. But
yes, sir. Thanks
for taking the time, Justin. That is Justin Wills, and we're going to be back with more coverage from the PRI show, brought to you by Radical Race Gear and the good folks from Track2.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the Track2 app. Track2 works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
For over 50 years, FHS Superior Synthetic Oil has powered high-performance engines with unbeatable protection and speed. Whether it's drag racing, go-karts, sprint cars, stock cars, or your daily driver, FHS stands for high speed and delivers every time. Their advanced synthetic oils boost your engine's responsiveness, acceleration, and efficiency, giving you the winning edge on every lap. Visit FHSoil.com today to find the right products for your engine. FHSoil.com. That'll wrap it up for this week's edition of the Tom Baker Show. We hope you're enjoying this series of shows from the Performance Racing Industry Trade Show in Indianapolis, Indiana, the largest motorsports trade show. And we've got one more coming your way next time, and it features a power trio of folks from throughout the racing industry. Jed Emmer from XS Batteries is going to join us. Jed not only serves for XS as one of their executives, but also is a racer himself on the dirt tracks in Tennessee with a couple of late models. He'll tell us about that. We've got Adam Stewart, the owner of the Talladega Short Track, and he's going to tell us some great stories. And we've got Frank Bolter, who is the founder of the Pit Pay app, and you'll want to hear about that as well. Until next time, for more great content, steeringwheelnation.com or at The Wheel Nation on Facebook and Instagram, or our streaming page on PowerTube. I'm Tom Baker. So long.